Hey everybody, welcome to TIW Podcast. I'm Eric, and today I watched Survivor Season 39, Island of the Idols, Episode 8. We made it to the merge. So I'm recording this in a rental car the day after I watched, almost a full 24 hours after I watched this episode, or actually more than that, because I stayed up really late to watch it. So I took a bunch of notes and all that, about the challenges, about all the happenings and all, but it was a 2-hour episode. I don't have those notes with me. I've been thinking about this episode since I watched it. I was kind of overwhelmed, right after, as I was watching, I was kind of overwhelmed. And, things got really heated. I was getting pretty mad at some of the people on the show, some of the people who make the show and all of that. And I felt like it would be better to, take my time thinking about it, reading some of the interviews and stuff afterwards. There's apologies issued from cast members and things like that. And I'm not as fired up as I was initially, especially while I was watching it. And I think that's maybe an important part of watching something like this episode. But real quick, let's talk. This episode, we have the merge. The two tribes come together to form Mukuwaka or something. I don't remember. I don't have my notes. I wrote it down. I don't remember what the new tribe name is called. But so we have two immunity challenges. I do want to talk about those challenges real quick. The first immunity challenge was what was it? Oh, it was like a kind of like a table that was set up with little pegs underneath, or like rebar poking up through some holes to some ball. There's a table with holes on it that had balls on those holes, and then the everybody had, it was an endurance challenge, and if you got too low, the balls would fall off. And if you lifted it up too high, well, you couldn't do that anyway because there's kind of like a ratchet latch system. Then the balls would fall off. So there were 3 balls, and once all 3 were gone, then you were out. And I wrote down the whole elimination order. It doesn't matter because the winner was Aaron for this first challenge. Now, this whole thing that went down. Okay, so this vote came down. It was between Dan and Kelly. They were the 2 targets. The whole thing with Kelly being uncomfortable with Dan, and bringing it up, and producers stepping in and having a whole meeting about everybody and all of that kind of thing. It played into the game because Missy and Elizabeth played up their they exaggerated their experience with it, and went along with it, and were basically lying about it from as their experience of it, to get the target onto him, to falsely get the target onto him, because their whole plan was to get Kelly out in the first place. So it was really, really manipulative of Missy and Elizabeth to do that, and I felt like that was the most wrong thing that happened out of all of this. And it really bothered me that they were so Kelly gets voted out, and then they have another tribal council, and they talk about this because because Janet's really upset that she changed she put her whole game at risk because she thought that she was protecting these women, because she was led to believe that they all felt uncomfortable with Dan, and that a solution to that would be to vote him off. And so then to learn that they then voted for Kelly, and it was all a ruse, basically, that was really offensive to Janet. She couldn't believe that they did that. And then they claim that they never said any of that stuff to Dan, and say to him that, oh, we're good, you have nothing to worry about, they never felt uncomfortable around you, and all that kind of stuff. And it was, I did read the apology from Elizabeth, and it seemed like it was a lot based on stuff that she didn't know until actually watching the episode, and being ashamed of what they did. And I appreciate that. It was a pretty solid apology. It did feel like that apology was genuine and all of that, but because it did, from the sound of it, that most of the realization of it was at seeing the episode air, then that means that growth, that learning from it, did not happen on the show. So we're not going to see that in the episodes, except for like in the finale with the reunion, and all of that. So that's a real bummer. Like, I am so okay. So I talked about all of this with Maggie a few hours after I talked about it, so I had calmed down a lot. But in her words, she's really disappointed in Elizabeth, and I think that's a really great word for that. Like, I couldn't think of exactly, like, I was like just pissed off at them, and kind of like, screw all these people for doing all this stuff and using a serious matter like this as gameplay. It was messed up. But I was really disappointed. That's the perfect word for that, because I was rooting, if you've been listening to all these episodes, I was rooting for Elizabeth from episode 1. She's one of my favorites on this show, and now that's just out the window because that was really, really awful behavior in that situation. And to see them like joking about it and laughing about it, all of that was really hard to watch. But anyway, that second trial, okay, so the second immunity challenge, it was another endurance thing. This time, the last woman standing and the last man standing each would win. This guy's going the wrong way out of the thing. It's fine. It's not busy out here. The last woman standing and the last man standing would win this challenge. And the last, who was the last? It was, I think it was Missy who won out of the women, and then Aaron won again. So I have a feeling Aaron's is going to win all these immunity challenges through the end of the game, and he'll probably be in the final 3 or 2 or whatever it is. But anyway, this tribal council, the target. Well, who's the original target? They were thinking of it ended up being split between 3 people because they didn't know. Oh, so the biggest thing, not the biggest thing, but another big thing about that first half of this episode, Kelly was voted out, but she was trying to gauge if she should play. She found an idol before the merge happened, right before the merge happened, and then she found another idol on the new beach, on the merge beach, and so she had 2 idols, and she didn't play either of them because she trusted that Lauren. She was sensing from Lauren that she was good. She didn't have to do it, and that was incorrect. She should have played it because she did get voted out, obviously. So that was a really big bummer about that too. Like, gameplay wise, that was a bummer. And then, just everything else about it was a bummer, not gameplay wise, but also gameplay because it became part of the gameplay, which is ridiculous. But anyway, that second tribal council, it was a lot of talk about all that going on, and like I said, it definitely could have been in the editing of putting certain reaction shots from Missy and Elizabeth in there to make it seem like they were feeling that guilt of what they had done. But that could have been manufactured in the editing or whatever. I don't know if they actually, none of us really know if they actually felt that during it. But, yeah, that it, manufactured or not, that made me upset because they're like all of this arguments and emotions and passion, emotions running high, all of that is happening because of what they perpetuated, what they the snowball that they contributed to. Things have been, I imagine things would have been so much different if they didn't latch on to that as a gameplay strategy, that they took it seriously and they were supportive of their friends, and not just taking advantage of something difficult that their friend was going through. They did, yeah, so all of it was really, really tough to watch. But then we have, the guys, mainly Aaron, like saying like, if this was such a big deal, then I would have known about it, that kind of thing. And I thought it was really great that Jamal responded to that by saying, that's exactly what's wrong with the real world when this happens in the real world, that that people, and men especially, dismiss things, problems, because they think that if it was actually a problem, we would have known about it, or if it was actually a problem, they would have said something a year ago or 6 months ago or whatever like that. And it was such a great point. And it was kind of a bummer that he was then voted out, not because of making that point, but because of, okay, let's backtrack just a hair. In the first half of the episode, Janet goes to Island of the Idols, and she's issued a challenge, or she's presented the option to take a challenge, and she declines because the lesson is about calculating risk, and the risk is that the advantage she would get was she would be safe from a tribal council, but to do so she would leave before the tribal council, go back to the beach while everybody else is doing their thing at tribal council, and then she'd be safe. But she thinks through that scenario, and that if she did that, then she would be a target to be the next to go after that. So she talked through it, and she refused, and Rob and Sandra were impressed by that. So that was pretty cool. In the second half of the episode, Karishma and Jamal, they spot a little letter hanging from a tree, and Jamal grabs it first. And so he goes to... Karishma seemed pretty upset about that. But so he goes to the Island of the Idols, and he's immediately lost his vote for the next tribal council. But he's presented the option to do a little bit of his own sabotage. He can do whatever he wants with a piece of parchment. And I thought, hey, he's going to ask, because Rob says, this can be anything you want. I would have asked, can this be the vote that I just lost? And I feel like if that question was asked, then you'd be like, well, yeah, that's good thinking. There you go. You've found the trick to this. Instead, he wrote up a whole legacy advantage thing, and he had to write it himself, and it was like not very good handwriting, and he gives it to Dean, Dean is like, oh, I can barely read this. And he's like, because he gets everybody together when he gets back, Jamal does, and he's explaining it like, oh, it was advantage, but I have to give it to somebody else, and that's the trick to it. And then they're like, oh, this is weird handwriting. It's like, oh yeah, it was on these like tablets that I had to like copy it down and all. It was such a bad lie that nobody believed it at all. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Dean just like threw it away after Jamal left. But anyway, Jamal hoped that would put a target on Dean, but it put a target on Jamal, and he ended up getting voted off. But it was it was split between like three people. I feel like I think it was Jamal got some votes. I think Karishma got a couple of votes, and then somebody else got some votes there too. I don't remember. Like I said, I don't have my notes with me, but yeah, a lot of this got so much got overshadowed. There is a lot of stuff going on in this double episode, and so much of it is overshadowed, and rightfully so, by the inappropriate touching and in misconduct and all that, and the everything around that is so much. There's so much to talk about with that. That you completely forget about a lot of the other stuff that goes on, such as Janet in the second half of the episode finds an idol herself after she went off to go sleep by herself out on the beach the night that Kelly was voted off, because she just had enough of everybody out around there. And wow, maybe this isn't the best place for me to be parked. People are being nutso around here, and I forget how many old people, old drivers are around. So anyway, Janet follows a couple of people. I forget who she was following, but she loses them, but she continues looking for an idol herself, and she finds it. So that's pretty cool. Now, the interesting thing would be if if Kelly had played her idol the previous night, first of all, Dan would have gone home, and she would have stayed in the game. And then also there would not have been a new idol hidden the next day, because she would still have another idol. I believe a new Iowa is only hidden because both of them were eliminated from the game when she was voted off. So I think that's an interesting aspect, another interesting what if. So anyway, man, this I haven't talked about like half of the stuff that there is to talk about all of this. I really recommend checking out all of the interviews and Elizabeth's apology and all that stuff. Reading those interviews and all that for yourself. See what you think about all the stuff that went on. I think the one thing for sure is that Missy and Elizabeth very wrongly exaggerated and manipulated Janet for their own gameplay. And it was not a good thing to do, in my opinion. So I think that's the most clear thing out of all of it. Everything else, I think you could question things are really questionable either way. Nothing is ever 100%. As far as what people's experience are, what people's feelings are, how people feel in a situation, all that. You can't confirm 100% that that's exactly what they're telling you is exactly what they felt and all that kind of thing. And it does come down to like, okay, I listen to what they're saying and be open to what they're saying and believe, take their word for it. And yeah, this whole situation makes that message about that and what Jamal said, like, just because, like, nobody is owed knowing everything about everything. Like that people who have had something bad happen to them, nobody is obligated to know that. It's if they don't feel comfortable about telling people about them being uncomfortable, it's up to that person, like who they tell, if they ever go to somebody about it and that kind of thing. So the whole making it gameplay part of it really it really muddies that message of, believing people, because it became a problem to believe them about it because they were lying. But you want the message to be, I feel like you want the message to be, you should be able to, you should believe somebody when they're talking about like a bad experience that they're having, because if they're they're confiding in you with something. And it's it undermines the real. I felt like it was everything from Kelly was genuine, and her discomfort and everything, that was all absolutely real, and the actions by the others like really undermine that. So Anyway, I've talked enough about this, I think, and there's got to be like hundreds of hours of other podcasts and everything talking about this as well. So I will say I'm, excuse me, this episode kind of ruined how I feel about a lot of the contestants. Contestants that I was rooting for are either voted off now or they suck because of what they did in this episode. And so I'm pretty much only, that just leaves Janet for me to be rooting for, because, she was doing what she thought was the right thing to do, as a human, to help other people who are she believed were having a really difficult time. And there was one person who was, and it ended up that she was being manipulated, and it was, so I'm rooting for Janet out of everybody who's left. She's the one that I would be happy to see get to the end and win this thing at this moment anyway. There's still a couple of people who don't get a whole lot of screen time and action. So they might come out of the shadows and be somebody I root for as well. But so many people are involved with this thing in a bad way that, it is ruined. But I am looking forward to see what happens next, which is a really interesting aspect. Like, how could I be how could I be so interested to see what happens to so many people that I don't like at all now? So we'll see what goes down next time. So let me know what you thought about this episode by tweeting me at TIW Podcast. Go to TIWpodcast.com for more reviews. If you enjoyed this episode or anything else on the site, please share some links with your friends. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, wherever you like to listen. Stay safe out there in all the infinite multiverses, and I'll see you next time here on TIW Podcast. Bye.